welcome sports fans to the Ultimate Boba Joe Show.
You have what it takes to survive.
I do. I'm going to survive Thanksgiving dinner and go back for seconds.
Well, look, we need to get into our teams of 5, because in a team of 5 you can strive to survive.
True words never been spoken. Now, this week's topic, there was a temptation. I've been led away from temptation, but maybe a little bit towards it. There was a temptation for a double feature here. We could have had Divas Do New York, the lingerie edition DVD. It's on eBay. It's only about $10. It's on eBay. Could have had a double feature of that, followed up by the Stephanie McMahon workout DVD.
Oh, baby. Working out in the NXT Performance Center.
Yeah. 5 fat-burning workouts for a lean, chiseled body. And 4-week workout calendar. Because if you sell any of these DVDs, or now it's all digital and YouTube stuff, you have to have like numbers 5 this and 4 that. And 3 weeks to lean abs and 1 minute abs and 30-second abs and all that stuff.
Well, look, she was pretty fit. She is pretty fit. I can't.
Yeah, she's still pretty fit.
I can't fault.
Active.
Yeah, she looks great, Stephanie McMahon. I'll say that much. Indeed. She looks fantastic.
She's the most like his dad. It's like for us business minded and like always like keeping active and fitness and that.
And also probably kind of crazy too, but that's
probably a bit crazy. But no one's as crazy as the old man.
But yeah, look, it's the first ever Survivor Series from November 26, 1987 at the Richfield Coliseum. Big night here. Very big night we're going to discuss. And it's a significant show in the sense that not only is it the first ever Survivor Series, the whole kind of reason for the show existing in the first place is really to put the legs off Jim Crockett Promotions and go head to head with them on the same weekend as STARRCADE, and just really mess with their business. And they were successful in messing with their business, because when the dust had settled, I think like this Survivor Series does something like 350,000 buys, whereas STARRCADE only gets like 20,000. It's a significant amount of damage this show did to STARRCADE.
Yeah, it's crazy. And all the underhanded tactics, whether it was this or other pay-per-views, where Vince was like, no, if you show this one, you can't have this one, and did all sorts of shady, borderline illegal shit.
Yeah, really strong-armed the pay-per-view companies into agreeing to only show.
You couldn't do that now. Like if you said that to a company now, they'd just tell you to take a hike. Be like, sorry, there's 10 million other things we could put on.
And I suppose the reverse of that is like, what have you kind of played at bluff, and the pay-per-view company goes, no, I'm not going to like. And then what happens next year when you're trying to sell them your show? Are they still going to want to do business with you? You know, it's I guess Vince just had that. It's a crazy tactic, but it worked for that year anyway. They managed to convince.
It's a big gamble, but that's, I don't know, a lot of the stuff in the 80s, Vince was a big gamble that it paid off, but it was more than just like paying off and working out financially. So much of the 80s and early 90s stuff was just, they could have lost a business, they could have gone out of business or gone bankrupt, or they could have, I can't say Jim Crockett Promotions ever would have been the superior company, because they were just so bad at spending money on everything and not being frugal about any of it. But they could have survived and still been a wrestling company if they hadn't gone out of business. So, or someone else could have come along and the other ones could have bought stuff up. There's so many bloody media moguls and people behind the scenes that could have bought stuff, and all of them could have gone away and could have been completely different landscape today. But no, we've got a lot of big beefcakes on this event.
We do. I love this red and yellow branding as well. It just fits right in with Hulk Hogan being the
it's got the real mega powers colors going.
Yeah, it's I have to say, for for a good chunk of time, Survivor Series was probably like my second favorite, you know, regular pay-per-view of the year. The Royal Rumble was always my first favorite, and then Survivor Series. But you know, Survivor Series, it became a bit of an afterthought in the modern era. They have recently kind
Yeah,
of gone to making it feel important again, but for a long time it was just really an afterthought when it came to the grander
yeah.
scheme.
And then they got rid of it for a while, and then they brought it back again, and then they changed it into different events like the bloody war games, but not the WCW war games, like the modern rebranding and NXT and other stuff where it's like war games and confusing.
Well, there was one year where they were considering actually ditching it entirely as a pay-per-view concept, and even though they kept the name of the pay-per-view Survivor Series, yeah, there was a while where there was probably like a few years where they wouldn't even bother doing like,
Yeah,
actual Survivor tags or the actual, the stipulation match, which is the whole point of the show, is the Survivor tag. But with this first one, it's all about the gimmick of the night, the Survivor Series tag team matches, and it really works. I have to say, um, even though I'm sure there was a lot of disgruntled STARRCADE and JCP fans that would argue otherwise, it's still Survivor Series is still a really, really good show. This one we're going to look at today. It's a really
yeah,
strong card, and it's some of these matches, as we're going to get into them, like they are just star-studded. Stars everywhere you look. Stars in my eyes. That's why I have to wear sunglasses talking about this show.
hang on.
It
There's
really
too
is.
many stars going on around here. But put these on.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a big deal, an historic event, and we're going to get into it. And of course, we're going to be listening to Jesse the Body and Gorilla Monsoon tonight on commentary, or one of our favorite duos to listen to. So we're always happy to hear them.
Yeah, I like it when Ventura talks about, or it might have been the following year because I've watched 2 or 3 of these this week in a row, and hear a lot of their banter when Ventura is talking about like some of the fancy outfits and stuff that some of the wrestlers are wearing. And he goes to Monsoon. He's like, "I'd like to see you wearing one of these, Monsoon." Monsoon's like, "Oh, we didn't have a choice. My day it was like black or green or gray or whatever."
Yeah, I like that Jesse, on at least 3 occasions during this show, makes mention of the Running Man and
Yeah, yeah.
talking about being a
He's like,
big
"It's my
deal.
movie,
And
but Schwarzenegger's also in it or something like that.
yeah, Arnold is just his co-star. He's the
Yeah,
actual star of the Running Man. But yeah,
and it
fantastic
mentions
duo as always.
and one of the following, not this year's but subsequent years, you get Zeus. So they mention, of course, the No Holds Barred movie.
I take the Running Man over the No Holds Barred
Oh,
any day.
definitely.
We should add that to our Schwarzenegger list for future features to talk about.
Yeah, it's on there. It's on there. I'm waiting on the Blu-ray in the mail at the moment.
Yeah, we kick off the show with a 5-on-5 elimination match. I believe our first match of the night is the Honkies team. Is that right? Going up against Savage's
Let's
team.
see. Let's have a look on here. Yeah, we got Beefcake, Jake Roberts, Duggan, Randy Savage, Steamboat versus you got Harley Race, Hercules, Honky Tonk, and Ron Bass, and then in the corner you got Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart, on the sidelines and that. It's always nice to see them.
Yeah, there you go, star-studded, straight out of the gate, and interspersed between all the matches on this show, there's going to be interviews with the teams backstage, and most of the interviews usually involve the team captain saying a few words while everybody's like shouting and screaming in the
Yeah, it's the
background and
weirdest
trying to get
promo thing.
attention.
There's too many. You've got the old 4-3 format. It's a little square, and you've got 3 guys in the front, another 3 behind them, another dude's bobbing around. You can just see their head now. They're like, there's Red Rooster up the back, and you just can't fit all these giant beefcake men in this tiny little box TV frame. But they get them all in there, and they're all just like, it's like a bunch of like chickens, like going. just bouncing around and making noises.
Yeah, but you know, Honky Tonk Man, he's pretty animated. Like in the opening kind of promo for this match, he's like, you know, if Elizabeth gets in there and gets in my way, I'm going to hit her with the shake, rattle, and roll, baby. You know, he's laying it in, and you know, Honky and Savage have been feuding for a while now.
So this is
You know, obviously
after because WrestleMania 3, like Steamboat gets the belt, but then he has his kid and he dropped out to spend time with his, you know, little Boba. So then Honky came in as a new champ. So is he still Intercontinental at this point, or is it back to
he is still Intercontinental
right.
champion. He is in the middle of that long reign he's having with that belt. It's going to be eventually ended at the first ever SummerSlam by the Ultimate Warrior, who will come out and squash him and finally take the belt from him. But at the moment, Honky is riding high as the Intercontinental champion. He is drawing lots of money on the WWF house show circuit as the Intercontinental champion. Like a lot
And
of
is
their
he
B
doing the
shows,
guitar gimmick at that point or not? Is he still smashing? Or is
he
that?
is. He's still
I
using the
like a good
guitar.
guitar smash.
Yeah, he's doing the guitar thing. He's got Jimmy Hart by his side. He's hanging on to the Intercontinental Championship by hook or crook literally every week. The big deal with the B house shows is Honky's Intercontinental title defenses are usually the main events, and you know, it's classic heel champ stuff where you think he'll the babyface finally has him beat, but then something will happen where Jimmy Hart will interfere, or someone will, you know, get a DQ or a count out, or he'll just always manage to escape with the Intercontinental belt. And it's a good way of building heat and, you know, building anticipation for someone to finally beat him for the belt, you know, which is what it's all about, you know.
His
Gotta
name
draw
came up.
interest.
His name came up this week in the Macho Man paperback biography. I'm reading it. I only got published last year, and but his name came up in that because it was just talking about Macho's career in order through like from you know, from heel to babyface and up to mega powers and all that and everything between, and going from being intercontinental to eventually having a run, you know, towards like Hogan and the belt and like the heavyweight. But then it mentions like Honky, and then mentioned he had his run, and then also there were some bits in there saying that McMahon wanted to end his run quite early, not because he was unpopular or anything, just because they were planning out stuff for Macho for the next year and a half. It's like, well, he's going to do this, and these guys are going to lose, and then we're going to build up to like the what is it, the $1 million team of Andre and DiBiase, and have all these pieces moving around that eventually gets us to here a year or so after. And he was just like one of the pieces that man's not really thinking about. And Honky's like, hang on, my run's not done. I'm drawing crowds. I'm not giving up this belt just yet.
You know, there'd be a lot of people who would, you know, rightly or wrongly, would take umbrage with the fact that Honky would refuse to do jobs. And, you know, in general, he was very protective about his character and hanging on to that belt. But, you know, once again,
Well, it makes sense when I was reading it from their sort of point of view, because like if you go out there and just bury them on TV as opposed to a house show, yeah, even what if you're not even in the promotion anymore, and then you go to somewhere else and you're just fucked because like, oh look, we showed you as a big loser on TV in front of 1 million people. Like it's not good.
exactly. And, you know, you have to think about it. If it was you in that position, you would be looking to prolong your career as long as possible and to
Yeah,
stay in a
because
prominent
it's not just
position as
that
long
match.
as
It's like it's
possible.
your job. It's like it's like sabotaging your job.
And like you were saying, you know, he was having a good run. Like people, there was genuine anticipation when it came to his title matches because people hated him so much. They really wanted to see him lose that belt, and they were willing to pay money to see somebody beat him and take the belt from him. So the longer the title reign went on, the more that anticipation built. And that's, you know, it's why Warrior gets such a massive pop when he comes out and beats him so quickly on that SummerSlam, is because people were just so elated to finally see the title reign come to an end. And you know, a lot of that is because Honky was such a good heel and just good at doing what he did. And even in this match on this Survivor Series, like his team, like one by one, they all get like, there is a little bit of back and forth eliminations in the beginning, but then it kind of, the tide turns and the baby faces start whipping the heels ass to the point where it comes down that Honky is the last man alive on his team, and he's outnumbered by the baby faces. But instead of, like, you know, fighting on or taking his beating like a man, he just runs out of the, he gets out of the ring and just runs away. He takes the loss, you know, by count out, and you know, that's brilliant, because it keeps that heel character intact. He's still a piece of shit. You feel no sympathy for him, and now there's also people who, you know, like lots of the participants on the babyface side were all people who could potentially challenge Honky for the Intercontinental title. So now you've got the next few months of storyline basically laid out where
Yeah.
Honky can fight these guys individually. You know, it's all very, very well done.
I think if I'd watched something back then that's like not just a SummerSlam or Mania, where you got these like big, you know, built up events like Hogan, Andre, or Macho and Steamboat, but just for an opening match, if you were there live in that audience, Survivor Series, you're seeing like Beefcake, Roberts, Steamboat, Honky Tonk, Harley Race, just see all these guys all at once in an opening match. It will just kind of blow your mind. But holy shit, there's just so many awesome dudes here all at once. It's like,
It's a fantastic concept for the time, and it's not like you're
and
watching
they
a
get more
Royal
time to
Rumble or a
shine
Battle
rather
Royal.
than Rumble, where there's so many coming and going. It's I love the Rumble, but you know they're coming and going. Whereas in the Survivor Series, everyone gets a bit more time to shine and be in the spotlight and that.
Yes, yeah, no, you literally took the thought right out of my mind there. I love the fact that, yeah, you all get a bit of time to shine. You get
It's
tagged
like
in,
watching
you
the
get to work
Avengers.
your.
It's like holy shit,
Yes,
there's
yeah,
Hulk and Cap and this guy and this guy and this guy.
and especially in this or at this first Survivor Series, maybe more so than any of the future ones, the teams are all very strong, and they're all big megastar teams. It feels like
Yeah,
everybody who's on this card feels like there's somebody who was in the mix. Now, I would probably exclude the women's Survivor match, but not for any type of derogatory reason, only because there's you know, a few women wrestling in it that wouldn't have been, like, you know, pushed too highly. They just have them there kind of filling in the numbers to make up
yeah, and
the
like
amount
some of those
need.
women's ones went on to do like a run in Japan as well.
Yeah. Well, look, that's probably as good a time as any to segue into this women's Survivor match, because, you know, it's easy to forget sometimes in wrestling history. Like, I know at the moment everybody is praising the modern era of women's wrestling, and rightly so. It's
They're
really,
doing
really
pretty good
good.
as far as actually just showcasing a lot of different female wrestlers in one day. So it's commendable they're
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, really. Like this Survivor tag, this women's Survivor tag is actually quite an entertaining and enjoyable match, and
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
especially those the two Japanese girls, the jumping bomb
The
angels,
jumping ball,
like
oh,
they
they
do
were
some.
awesome.
They were awesome, and they do a lot of modern looking stuff. Like they do a lot of
Yeah,
the.
well, I don't know their background, if it's in like wrestling or judo or what, but the first time I watched it, which would be for me the first time seeing this was last year, and I've watched it probably 2 more times since, including again this week. But the moment I saw them move, I went, they've got some actual wrestling or martial arts background, just the way they move and all their transitions. It's like if you watch like Hoist Gracie in the early UFC, he's like here, then he transitions to here, 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 or Brock Lesnar. Not the strength and the power, but just the transitions and the movements, or Bret Hart. There's no wasted movement getting from one thing to another. Everything makes sense, and it's like a kinetic chain of stuff happening.
And yeah, and it's moving at a frantic pace as well when the bomb
Hmm.
angels are in the ring. Like they move very swiftly. Like they're really
And they're so good
agile,
together.
and
You can tell they've like
yes,
worked together a lot. And it's like
and
watching like Brett with Bowen or Anvil and all that.
they would have some, I suppose, for the time, what would be considered like good woman or good women tag team matches against the Glamour Girls, who are also in this match. They actually it's another thing you always forget as well until you watch random events like this. There was a WWF Women's Tag Team Championship back then. Uh like the champions come out during this match, but it was like totally forgotten about in the years like, you know, since it, it's something that you only think about being like a modern invention, but they did in fact have
Yeah, they don't even mention
women's tag champs.
They don't even mention any like 80s, 90s. They never talk about any of the women's wrestling history as far as WWF. I mean, there's other promotions and whatnot as well, of course. But like, it's other than this match, like I think during the commentary they would go, Moolah, oh, she's been the champ for 20 or 30 years or some nonsense. And I'm like, as if there's been no one else wrestling in all that time. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, and sometimes though in Moolah's case, the reason she held the belt for that long was because she'd be like semi-retired, or
yeah, retired. Yeah, it's like if you just take the belt and go home, like, oh, I'm going home, I'm keeping the belt. You have to invent a new one now.
We see as well in this this women's match, Sensational Sherry, who's actually the women's champion at the time. We get to see her have her working boots on and actually wrestle in a match. Prior to this, we've usually watched her, managing either Savage or DiBiase or whoever, but now we're kind of seeing her in her most sensational attire, working in this 10-woman tag match, and she's actually really good. Sherry knows how to work and knows how to throw down. We also have Velvet McIntyre, of course, representing Ireland. She's announced as being from Dublin, Ireland. I have never, ever actually went and checked to see if that's a legit fact or whether that was just her gimmick, that she was some Irish girl. I'm just going to pretend that she definitely is an Irish person. I don't care if she really is or not. I'll claim her as being Irish. I don't mind. But yeah, it's a really just a fun match, a nice back and forth match with the ladies and the crowd. To be fair,
is Irish, but it could be one of those damn AI wrong results. So don't trust it.
Yeah, she could be like several generations removed, possibly from
Dublin.
being Irish.
There you go, Wikipedia Dublin. So there you go. She is genuinely Irish.
Okay,
and then you've got there's what's her name? Is Jake's sister in this one?
Oh yeah, Rockin' Robin. Rockin' Robin is in this match.
Which they don't ever mention that's his sister, because they don't ever on screen or TV like connect them, but they're like biologically, brother and sister.
I believe we would have briefly seen Rockin' Robin doing the national anthem for one of the WrestleManias we reviewed. Might have been Mania 7 or 8, maybe. So
and she was in one of the Manias too, isn't she? There was like a women's match on them.
I believe so. But yeah, they never ever acknowledge on screen that she is in fact Jake the Snake's sister. But she is. But no, it was it's definitely it's good work, I would say, from pretty much all the women in the match. Like they all kind of just put it together and they keep it moving. And yeah, the Jumping Bomb Angels win the match for their team, which is Team Moolah. So they walk out with the W.
They have fantastic thighs. I wouldn't mind if they put me in a submission on Angels. They're just so strong. They're like, if you watch like professional judo or sumo, it's that very Japanese thing where they've got those thighs. You're like, holy crap, they're powerful. They could really suplex you or squish you or throw you.
It's funny here seeing like one of the women. There's two women pretty much I know nothing about this match. Like I would only really know them from this match. One of them is Donna Christianello, but the other one is Dawn Marie. And I chuckle to myself when I see Dawn Marie, because there actually is a modern women's wrestler, Dawn Marie, who I do know, who's an ECW. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's the girl I'm thinking of. They are two very different looking women, folks. I'll say that much. I think I prefer my ECW Dawn Marie to my 1987 Dawn Marie. That
I only know that name because it was in the video game on the roster select when I played the old video game.
The rest of these ladies we would have seen fairly regular on WWF TV, like Judy Martin, Leilani Kai, Velvet McIntyre. They were all knocking around. But yeah, no, it's a good showcase of the match. And to be fair to the crowd, because it's once again it's a new concept and an exciting format. It's not like like an Attitude Era modern kind of piss break match where they just throw a bunch of women out there while the crowd like doesn't pay attention. The crowd are actually into what the women are doing, and largely it's
It's a
because of
decent match. Like those '90s women's ones were terrible. Like Attitude ones were just
awful.
Just not good wrestling, not good entertainment. Even the 13-year-old me doesn't want to watch that. I didn't find it titillating or entertaining or anything. I just thought it sounded stupid.
Yeah, like we'll get into it when we get there, because I'm sure someday we'll actually get as far into the years of like '99 and that, like when we're really just
we've got
at, like,
our next Mania coming up. We're up to, I can't remember, we're up to like 12 or 13 or something like that. We're getting into that era.
Yeah, we're getting very close to the era of just when it becomes all about the T and the A as opposed to talent.
It's so much about it that the promotion years later names itself TNA and then says, "Oh no, that's not what it's about." Like, no, that is where the name comes from.
So yeah, the women's match, definitely a strong showing and worth a watch if anybody's interested. It is up on the WWE official YouTube channel. You
can
will
also
find
go
it
on YouTube and look up Jumping Bomb Angels, and there's quite a few individual matches from WWF and other territories from that era that are actually like decent quality image to watch in it.
Yeah, good match, and it goes a decent length as well. Like it's
they
over
didn't cut it
20
short.
minutes of action, which is another reason why it probably gets over with the crowd, because they're given time to shine and show what they can do, and the fact that they're doing moves that some junior heavyweight males in Japan might have been doing, but not many people in America were doing. So the audience are being treated to some futuristic looking stuff, as opposed to what they're used to watching at this period of time.
Yeah, I found it really enjoyable, and like I'm not for or against any particular type of wrestling, but sometimes you watch a certain thing and you go, I'm really into it. Other times you go, this is kind of boring, whether it's the person or just the way it's presented. But I found this like surprisingly enjoyable.
So the next big match is the Tag Team Survivors Series match, as in tag teams, as in the individual tag teams.
So I got the bigger text here, and then we'll keep going. So we got British Bulldogs being David Boyd, Dynamite Kid, Killer Bees, Rougeau Brothers, Strike Force with Rick Martel and T. Santana, and then you've got the Young Stallions, the Bolsheviks, Demolition, Dream Team with Bravo Valentine, Heart Foundation, Islanders. It's exhausting reading all this. And then you've got Bobby Heenan, Mr. Fuji, Jimmy Hart, Johnny Valiant, and SYXX. So a whole bunch of people hanging around the ringside.
That's really in a great era for tag teams here. Looking at that,
how great is it just seeing the old like Heart Foundation, like Brett doing the tag team and that before the singles running.
It's fantastic, and the stipulation is slightly different in this match because there's so many extra people in the match. It means that if one member of a tag team is eliminated, then both members of the team have to leave the match.
Otherwise, it would just go all night. It's like,
and it makes it easier then to actually keep track of who's still surviving in the match as the teams begin to be whittled down. But
it was me. I'm the survivor.
It's a serious list, though. Like looking at these teams, like I suppose, you've got the Bulldogs and the Heart Foundation.
It's the most international event and teams by far. It's like people of the globe.
But it's just even like Strike Force are a great team. The Fabulous Rougeau Brothers are a great team. The Bolsheviks are kind of sucky in the ring, but they're definitely over as heels, so you can understand them being in there. Demolition are going to become a legendary tag team. The Islanders are a great tag team. The Young Stallions are kind of jabronis, but they are a good tag team, so like they deserve to be there. Same with Killer Bees, they can be a bit jabroni-ish as well. But once again, it's all just proper teams who've been established on television, so it just makes sense that they're all going to be here in this match.
Yeah,
and
it's nicely proper tag teams. They're not like nonsense ones that are thrown together.
And Strike Force, they haven't been champions for too long at this point. They've only recently become champions, so it's a good way to get them on a big show without putting them in a title match and showcase their abilities with some of the other potential contenders for the tag team championship further down the road. Like, that's another nice thing about Survivor Series, is it gives you teasers of matches that you're going to be getting later on. Like, you might only see somebody in the ring for a couple of minutes with somebody else, but that could just be to test the waters to see what it would be like to put them in an actual proper match, further down the line. And
How do you
getting
feel about
something
like
bigger and
this
better.
era here in Survivor Series? Like, you got a lot of tag teams and that, so obviously like there's a good emphasis in part of the decade on tag teams compared to, say, like this year, like now on Raw and SmackDown. I saw some stuff, and I just find the tag teams on there so boring. None of them stand out to me. Whereas here, like, at least half of these guys will stand out.
Oh, it's nice, and like tag wrestling.
I'm sure there's good ones out there, but I just found them so boring, and just the gimmicks and the characters. Like, oh.
Look, if you're not going to treat it or as important as your main event, then people are going to look at it as a substandard or a less important part of the show. And it's been decades now of tag team wrestling being eroded and made feel less important than
Does
the singles
NXT have the
division.
bit of tag teams? I don't really watch it, but does that feel like maybe does that have the bit of talent
Well, like,
there for the tag team?
here's my issue with all the promotions at the moment in modern wrestling is they've plenty of talented tag teams,
Yeah,
but
but it's the way
nobody
they
really
present
cares
it and
about
the
them.
characters and that don't
Yes,
really. Yeah.
and like, you just don't have the time put into promoting it. And you could probably blame Vince McMahon, even though during this golden era he took tag team wrestling pretty seriously. As the years progress and we move well into the 90s and past the 90s, into the 2000s and beyond, like, tag team wrestling becomes a real afterthought, and
It
it
is
just
cyclical too,
means
because it
less
goes
and less.
way back to like 50s and 60s, 70s. There's decades where it's like the biggest thing in wrestling, and then other decades where just nobody cares and it's more singles. Yeah.
We will see a big lull in the tag division happens probably from about 94 to maybe 90, 98,
Yeah.
until the New Age Outlaws win the belts and they start kind of promoting the belts more seriously again. The trick to tag team wrestling, I think, for making it important is you have to kind of make your audience understand that your best tag team are individuals that are pretty impossible to beat as a team. So if two singles guys team up against them, they're probably going to be beaten fairly easily. So even if somebody who's in the main event goes up against them, if it's in a tag team match, it still makes sense for the regular tag team to be able to win because they are tag team specialists, for want of a better term. Whereas in like modern wrestling, it's just like fucking tag teams. They get beaten like by teams of two individuals that are just thrown together that week. They'll beat an established tag team like it's nothing, and they won't make a big deal of it. And tag team champions will lose non-title matches to these thrown together teams. Like, it just, all it does
I
is
feel like
diminish
the
the.
current Raw SmackDown ones, it's like the same three tag teams every week are just fighting losing to each other over and over. And they're just playing pass the parcel with the belt, and like, this guy's got it now, they've got it. There's no real consequence or anything to it.
It just
Build up.
and like, I suppose we could talk about this across nearly all the belts, but for the tag team belts in particular, they don't feel like a prize that you'd actually care about enough to want to win. Like, why would I compete in this three-way fucking ladder match to win these belts that, like, everybody seems to get a turn with these belts as well. Like, nobody holds on to them for that long. Like, it's past the parcel, Whereas back in 1987, when Strikeforce shockingly beat the Hart Foundation for the belts, like, that was a big deal because the Hart Foundation were an established tag team, and for this newer tag team to beat them for the belts, like, that was a massive, massive upset and a shocker and something that drew a lot of interest in the show, Whereas nowadays, I don't know, they've just kind of lost that focus. And with tag team
I feel
wrestling,
like
it's going to take
most
a
of the
long
belts
time to build it up.
change just too often. You can't even keep track of it because it happens not just tag, but all the And there's so many damn belts now. I can't keep track of them all, the different belts they have.
Yeah, the sheer volume of belts can be a problem.
It's like the Universal Supreme Heavyweight Captain of the Universe belt. I'm like, what? I thought the other guy had that. It's like, no, that's a different belt again.
Yeah, and especially if you've got, like, say, okay, so we'll go from, if you got 2 world titles, then you've got your Intercontinental, your United States, your tag, then you've got women's versions of all those belts I just mentioned, then you've got your developmental belts like your NXT Championship, your
and then
NXT
they had all
tag team,
the
like it just
brand
goes
split
on and
stuff.
on and on.
I don't know what they have what the consequences. That remember, they had the old Raw SmackDown split and then back together, and then they had like individual belts for that as well, and it's so confusing.
Like at this exact era in time, 1987, we're looking at now, they have the WWF Championship, they have the Intercontinental Championship, they have the Tag Team Championship, and that's all the men's belts. Then for the women, they've got the women's belt and the women's tag team belts, which will soon be disappeared and gotten rid of. So they don't really have an abundance of belts in 1987, which is why that the belts they do have seem so important, because not anybody can just get a belt. You know, there's not too many of these belts to go around, and the people who
when did they bring in that
win the
European
belt,
one? Was that the 90s or late 80s?
The European title was introduced in 1997.
Right.
I actually like the European Championship, but I'm not going to lie, I could tolerate it as the way I looked at the European Championship was it was always like the WWF's version of a television championship. It was just one of those belts you could defend on TV every week and give to somebody who you may have plans for, but maybe you don't have like the most important plans for them at the moment. So it's a belt for them to fight for on TV each week. And you know, the first few months or so of the title are actually pretty good. You know, so I know we're getting way off topic here, but just because you mentioned it, so the European Championship is decided. The inaugural champion is decided in a tournament, which the finals are in Germany, and the show airs live from Germany, and it's Owen Hart versus the British Bulldog, and the British Bulldog becomes the first ever European champion. You know, the second ever European champion is Shawn Michaels. So straight away, the European factor is just taken out of it altogether.
Hang on,
The next champion.
Shawn in Texas.
Exactly.
Not very European.
But, you know, in terms of the actual prestige for the belt, it was probably still a big deal for Michaels to hold that belt because he was a big star at the time. Triple H holds the belt, D'Lo Brown holds the belt, X-PAC holds the belt. Like, for a while, it is a good mid-card belt before things start getting a bit ridiculous and they add even more belts into the mix, and then it just gets lost in the shuffle and becomes like all these other kind of non-important championships that we've spoken about. However, back on topic, back to 1987. It wasn't like that back in 1987. We had one set of tag belts that were very important, and they were on a good team, even though Strike Force wouldn't go down as one of the best teams in history or anything. While they were together, they were a good team and, you know, very athletic. And the crowd appreciated the abilities of Rick Martel and Tito Santana as a team.
He is a model. Is he a model at that point or not yet? Or not?
No, not yet. He's still his clean cut, smiling baby face. Like when him and Chico, they will split up. I believe we spoke about it was possibly a WrestleMania 5, WrestleMania 6. They kind of split up after a while, and yeah, Rick goes on to become the evil model, while Tito just
I've read quite a few
the
wrestling biography paperbacks in the last 12 months, and like they talk about 70s, 80s, 90s. Like every time that Rick Martel comes up in various stories, people always have good things to say about it. Both in and out.
Oh, look, Rick Martel is one of those guys who you could nearly do a show just on him by himself. Before he even made it to WWF, he was like AWA world champion at a very young age, just because he was so good. Like prior to the WWF, he had a good old run in the AWA, and his WWF run, like he had a really good go of it there. Like he has the early days tag team but with Strikeforce, but one and the Can-Am connection as well. But like later on when he does that model gimmick, like he's doing that model gimmick right up until 1993 or 94. Like he gets a lot of mileage out of it. So yeah, like a lot of praise to Rick Martel. Like, he even has a run in WCW in the late 90s.
Really?
Become the television
Wow.
champion and has a bit of a career there as well. So he had quite the decade, at least in the wrestling business. Did our man Rick?
Yeah,
But
very
yeah, it's
talented.
really talented, really talented. But yeah, look, this tag team match, lots of cool double teams, lots of cool examples of just the tag teams getting to do their thing. We get to see Dynamite Kid as part of the British Bulldogs. His back hasn't completely failed him yet, so he's able to do his kind of nice looking moves and stuff. He's clearly not like, off his head yet on painkillers and only barely like
Yeah.
able to move around the ring. He's actually able to do his thing. And there's nothing nicer than seeing like a young Bret Hart and a young Dynamite Kid actually mix it up and
Yeah, it's awesome.
trade holes. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. To be able to see these guys kind of work their magic, even if it is only for a few minutes at a time. Just getting to see, what they can do. And like, all these tag teams, like I said, they've all got a good reason to be there and, be part of the match. And, look, like I said, even though the Young Stallions and the Killer Bees are kind of, they're pretty far down the ladder when it comes to the tag team rankings, but they still put on a good showing and, make a good account of themselves on this night. So no, another good match. And, I have to say so far, we're like 3 for 3 on these matches being enjoyable and entertaining. I have no complaints so far about what we've been watching as we're about to head
Yeah,
into
we're
the,
going to get
the main event.
a lot of beef coming up in the next match event, and I guess for the actual genuine tag teams like that 5-on-5, that's your real. Well, there are various weights and sizes, but that's your more athletic performers to be in this event there. And whereas now in the main event, we've got Hogan, Orndorff, Morocco, Ken Patera, Bigelow, Andre, One Man Gang, King Kong Bundy, Butch Reed. I mean, they're certainly all talented too, but we're getting into the big boys,
Oh yeah,
the big beefcakes.
and the pace is about to slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
For the main event, but it does
they
not matter
definitely got the
because
star power, but there's a lot of like having Bundy and One Man Gang and Andre the Giant on the same team. It's like 5 or 10 people squished into 3 human beings.
the interview before the main event
And they
with
make
the good
Bigelow look
guys is really
small on the
funny.
other team.
The way, like we mentioned earlier, they have these interviews before each of the matches with the teams, and it's usually just
Yeah.
everybody kind of shouting and rabble, 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 rabble. But
Rebel.
with Hogan's one, Hogan is such a steam sealing ham. He doesn't
Macho
he
Man as well.
doesn't get out of the way. He doesn't get out of the way to let the camera see
He
the other
literally
members of his
stands and
team.
leans into the camera like this, and so he's in front of all the other guys.
And even when the interviewer goes to each individual team member to say their piece, Hogan is still eating up most of the shot and like muscling his
Yeah,
way in. Like he's just total egomaniac. Yeah, total
he
screen
just
hog
treats
is
it like it's
Hogan.
his promo and sits in front of everyone else.
But yeah, the star power is off the chain for this main event, and rightly so. I think, is this our first time encountering Ken Patera on these reviews we've been doing?
Yeah, I
Have
think
we
so.
spoken about him?
He was like what? He was like an Olympic weightlifter or something like that. What was his claim to fame?
That's right. Yeah, he was a former Olympic powerlifter, I believe. He was
Yeah.
also, I think, broken into the business with Ric Flair around the same time as Ric Flair, and they were trained by the same dude. As far as I remember, I could be misremembering that. They might have both been trained up by one of Gagne's guys, but he uh he never obviously made it to the lofty heights that Ric Flair did, even though he did have a bit of a
Wow.
decent run in the business. I think he actually ended up doing time because he like threw a boulder through the window of like a McDonald's drive-through when they
Yeah, I
wouldn't
heard that
serve him
story
one night.
on the bloody, it was either Tales of the Territories or the other one, like the Vice documentaries, like the McDonald's wanting the food and they wouldn't serve because it was closed.
Yeah, he had a decent enough little run here, but yeah, we've got a few other standouts here on Team Hogan. We've got Paul Orndorff, who has kind of gotten over his bad blood with Hogan in the storyline. They had previously been feuding, but now they're kind of both together again on the babyface side, even though throughout the match Jesse will draw suspicion upon their relationship and, you know, suggest that there actually is quite a lot of tension between Orndorff and Hogan. Yeah, there's Mr. Wonderful himself there making an appearance on the show. Great figure. Love that figure.
Yeah,
we've got the original Rock. Don Morocco is also out.
Rock
runs to the ring wearing his jumper with his tights. Look. And a very, very young Bam Bam Bigelow being showcased here on this show. I honestly, you can feel the jealousy radiating off Hulk Hogan having to be in the ring with someone like a young Bam Bam Bigelow. I think here, because even in that backstage interview they do earlier, I feel like of all the people Hogan is trying to overshadow the most, it's like Bam Bam. He gives him the least time to talk or say anything or make any type of a statement. But I absolutely love Bam Bam, I have to say, and especially here he's very, very young and he's doing loads of like Captain Kirk, you know, Bill Shatner style rolls in the ring, like, you know, when he's dodging moves, he's doing like forward rolls to like duck clotheslines and stuff like that. He's really athletic.
Yeah, it's like the jiu-jitsu roll, like the diagonal shoulder to hip, like they used to do it on Star Trek too.
I'm sure you were very happy as well seeing the one-man gang actually come out as the one-man gang and not Akeem the African Dream.
Dinosaur Bro, or whatever they say. Dinosaur Bro.
Yeah,
I can never understand the song.
Yeah. He still comes out to the Jive Soul Bro music just without the whole Akeem getup. The one-man gang, though, I have to say, absolute badass gimmick. And he looks
I like the character
fantastic.
so much better than the Akeem one.
I always
think funny because he's like Canadian, I think, and then the one-man gang looks like some kind of redneck trucker from a dive bite. You might see him like Roadhouse, the movie or something. He just looks like, don't mess with that guy.
I just love like his cool like black and white. I always think of the Bullet Club logo when I see his, because he's got skulls on his like arms and stuff like that. He just has a really cool look. And yeah, he just dominates a lot of this match as well before he gets eliminated. But yeah, the star power is totally off the chain. And what's really refreshing about this match, and like as always, folks, we don't go through these things blow by blow or whatever. If you want to see either watch the show or read the synopsis, if you want to see the exact order of eliminations. But long story short, Hogan is not actually the sole survivor in this match, shockingly. Like, he actually gets eliminated before the end, and it's down to Bam Bam to fight the good fight. And for a decent chunk of the match, Bam Bam is outnumbered by the gang, Andre and King Kong Bundy.
Yeah, which is crazy. The three biggest guys versus the next other biggest guy.
And, we think Bam Bam is going to be taken out, but one by one, he's able to eliminate Gang, and then he's able to eliminate Bundy. And then it comes down to him and Andre, and you're thinking, whoa, are they going to really go the distance here with Bam Bam and have him eliminate Andre? Because, Andre is trying to grab him and Bam Bam's doing the Bill Shatner rules to try and escape. And for a couple of moments, you think they're going to go the distance. Bam Bam is going to do it here. But then Andre, he kind of grabs him. Bam Bam misses a splash and Andre grabs him and he does this kind of double arm suplex on him and he just pins him really quickly. So Andre wins the match for his team. And we should probably also make mention of the fact as well, it says it here on the poster, this is Andre's first time in the ring on TV since WrestleMania 3. So the first time he's been in the ring since, losing to Hogan in the famous WrestleMania 3 main event. So another big draw of this event is that chance to see Andre back in action here. And,
Yeah.
you know, we've mentioned it multiple times now when we do these old reviews. Andre, his back is in bits. He is tired. He is probably in a lot of pain. He does the best that he can, and the crowd are
Yeah.
still really interested in,
It's
you know,
amazing he
what
could
he's
even
doing.
still do anything at this point because his body's just such a mess.
Yeah, and like fair play to Bam Bam for being able to actually kind of get himself up to help Andre actually do a move on him and make it look somewhat decent. But you know, once again though, even though we witnessed Bam Bam almost go the distance and almost do something great, Hogan has to come back out, steal the spotlight, you know, chase away Andre, chase away the managers, and then goes and starts posing and doing his Hulk ups and doing the double bicep, and the Hogan music is just playing to the point where we kind of forget everything that Bam Bam had been doing
Yeah.
the last
Reminds me
few
of
months
WrestleMania
before
9.
Hogan.
It's like here's
Yeah,
an event, it's nothing to do with you, but then he comes in and like, oh, now it's about me, brother.
yeah. All we're left thinking about is wow, Hulk looks great, his biceps look great, and I do love listening to the Real American theme song. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a oh, Hogan, you know, typical Hogan having to get the spotlight back on him for the end of the match. But still, though, like I was saying, a very very enjoyable main event, a star-studded main event, and a great way to cap off this first ever Survivor Series. What did you think of it overall as a
I really
show?
enjoyed it, and I only got to watch it for the first time. It was last year or the year before they scrapped the whole bloody network globally a couple of years ago, but it was still kind of hanging on in various territories, and it got relaunched and then 2 times in the last 2 years. So now it's all Netflix. Before that, globally, it was all switching around. So I was trying to watch all this stuff for the first time, and then they pulled it off, and it was gone for 12 months. Then I was like, great, I can watch it again. And then they pulled it off, and it was gone for months. So I only got to watch it for the first time in my life in the last 2 years and really enjoyed it. And I'd seen bits of WrestleMania, and I made a point in the last 2 years to watch WrestleManias 1 through 10, the first 5 Survivor Series. I watched the first 10 Rumbles. I watched the first 10 SummerSlams. I've only seen the first 2 King of the Ring, so that's my other ones to follow up next and watch those when they're back up. But I really enjoyed it because I didn't even know. The first time I watched it was really confusing, so I didn't actually know what it's about. I just know the name of it. And I had no idea how any of it worked. So I just watched it. I'm like, okay, stuff's happening. The second time around, and it kind of made more sense.
Should probably make mention as well because we actually discussed it before we recorded today. There is a decent chunk of this event taken up by a highlight reel of Million Dollar Man
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of best of evil moments for want of a better description. So
Yeah, all the different sketches and that are done like out and about in the real world and filmed like really high quality film type production thing where he's in the outfit, he's in cars, he's driving around, he got to the pool, and then you got the other ones in the arena shows and that where he's doing the push-ups or the basketball bounces with the kid. But like he's so evil but he's so like his comic timing is just brilliant. He's so good on all those segments.
so funny, and like one of the because it's Survivor Series and because it's Thanksgiving, it has the footage that we actually showed previously on our review of WrestleMania 4 when we were talking about the Million Dollar Man. But it's him sitting in the limo talking about how thankful he is to be rich
I'm
and a
thankful.
millionaire, and a really really great segment. And
He's like, all those
I believe
rubes are all those suckers out there.
and yeah, so we see him, you know, torturing these various children from the audience, you know, in order to get them to, you know, he invites them into the ring. Like, you know, there's the little kid. He's like, bounce the basketball 15 times, and I'll give you $100. And when the kid gets to number 14, he has Virgil kick the basketball away, and the
That's
kid
so
doesn't get
good.
his money. But one of the segments that shows him inviting a kid into the ring to kiss his dirty feet for money, and that kid would actually grow up to be Rob Van Dam.
Oh,
So
that's crazy.
that is a bit crazy. Yeah,
Then you
that
get the lady
future
that barks like
RVD.
a dog and does the worst dog bark I've ever heard in my life. And the public pool sketch where it's like a bunch of kids in the pool and he goes to the pool and he's like, hey, what time does the pool close? And he's like, oh, it's a public pool. We can't do that. And he's like, how about this? And he puts down 100, another 100. And he's like, I think there's DiBiase is like, I think there's too much chlorine in the pool. And then the guy at the public pool blows the whistle and goes, everybody out, there's too much chlorine in the pool, because he pays him like, I don't know, more than $500 or whatever.
Yeah, this crooked $1 million man will steep
those
the
are great
no lengths to get
sketches,
what he
and
wants.
they kind of stand out even for back then, because obviously they're putting a lot of money into all these productions and that. But $1 Million Man, he got some of the most expensive segments, I think, compared to anyone.
Oh yeah, and I suppose when you
and real money for his gimmick too from Vince.
Real money. But this is the thing: the gimmick, like a lot of people say, the $1 Million Man gimmick was kind of almost based on Vince McMahon. And
Yeah.
when you mentioned, getting that woman to get on all fours and bark like a dog, like that's totally out of the mind of Vince
that's
McMahon.
a precursor to all the shit that came later on, all the Trish Stratus stuff and the.
But yeah, we've the way the show ends, it does kind of set up a lot of things going forward. So like we are going to see now going into the following year, they're going to have the big rematch on TV with Hogan and Andre, where the whole shenanigans with the double referees is going to happen. And, Andre ends up winning the belt, but selling it to Ted DiBiase. And there's a whole...
I love that storyline. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a whole mess of stuff. But I will, I'll plug the show once again, folks. If you want to know that story, you should go check out our review for WrestleMania 4, because we do go into detail on the saga of Hogan, Andre, and the $1 Million Man, and all their dubious dealings to try and get the belt, and to buy the belt, essentially, which Jack Tunney says you cannot do. You cannot be buying that belt. It's against the rules. So yeah,
I love that storyline, and I just love the whole nature of it. Well, of course, $1 Million Man will do stuff like that, and it's like, well, it's show wrestling. You got to cheat. That's the whole thing of it. You can cheat and get away with it. Doesn't matter how you cheat, just as long as you can do it. Why that no one can stop you.
And I'm sure at some point as well we will probably look at Starrcade 87 just to see the other side of the coin about what was going on this Thanksgiving weekend. And
you got Starrcades and bunkhouses and all kinds of things going on in the competition.
Yeah, there was no shortage of wrestling going on Thanksgiving. This was a big deal, first ever Survivor Series, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're going to be dealing with another first next week.
Yes, so we'll be skipping the Stephanie DVD, although maybe we might watch that offline in private time. We'll check that. But what we're doing next week, let's have a look here if I can find it again. Hang on, maybe I'll take these off because they're all fogging up. We got Royal Rumble. I don't know if it's going to come up for me. It'll be annoying. There we go. I got it.
So we're sticking to the timeline pretty good here, because this will just be a couple of months after what we just spoke about today. So it's going to be the first ever Rumble. A little bit different to the Rumbles you might be used to watching, because I believe it's only 20 men as opposed to 30 men. But of course, what's getting us particularly excited is this grudge match between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Ravishing Rick Rude, which we're also going to get to enjoy. So this big event is coming up, and it's I suppose more a big TV special, because it hasn't been established as a pay-per-view just yet. That's going to be later on. So this is going to be our first foray into the Rumble Royale with cheese.
Yes. I love the logo too. The Royal Rumble. It's got that gold. It's such a cool logo.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh. And it's just we're still in this golden age. In our WrestleMania reviews, we've kind of hit the mid-90s, so it's nice to be able to go back now to the 80s, where things were still firing on all cylinders and
everything was better. And things today suck and roll better.
Those pesky drug
it's just like the era you grew up with, and there's a lot of talent in the ring. Yeah,
there's a lot of talent, and it's good though to.
Vince stole from other people's promotions and put them out of business so he could create his own secret team of Avengers.
Well, it's good for us as well to fill in the gaps in the story we've been telling. Because with WrestleMania, we're looking at a particular event at a particular time in the year, and it's like a snapshot of what's going on during that time period. But as we kind of add these other shows into the mix, we're going to actually begin to see a more complete story of what's been going on fully throughout these years we've been looking at, you know. So
Yeah,
the
I've
gaps
now
are being
watched all the
closed.
Rumbles from the first one up to at least 2010 now. I've watched those 6 fights, some of them back to. I think my best record, one night I watched 3 in a row, but I think I skipped to the main match, not the whole event. But I have watched other full 3x3 events sometimes at a weekend. That's 9 hours and it's not wrestling.
Yeah,
I love when some of the later Rumbles, when you get people who are been tag teams or former like friends and they eliminate each other, it's like the best. It's like he threw his own tag partner out.
Don't forget, it's every man for himself, you know.
Yeah.
You always have to remember. When it
And then
comes
when you get
down
the
to it, there
ones
can
where
only
they
be
do
one
team up
winner.
and take a few guys out, and then it's like, okay, well, now we're going to take each other out.
That's it. That's it. No, looking forward to getting ready to rumble next week. And
Yeah.
hope you folks enjoyed listening to us chat about the 1987 Survivor Series, the first ever Survivor Series. Please do let us know if you enjoyed our chat and if you enjoyed this event. Did you watch it at the time? Did you watch it on video later on? Did you hate it? Do you hate the idea of these Survivor tag matches? Do you think they're really
Did you get
boring?
very confused and think this was about the Survivor reality TV show and you clicked on this by accident? It was playing the background.
Do you love Hulk Hogan? Do you hate Hulk Hogan? Let us know. We're dying to know.
Do you like Hogan with a side of cheese?
You like Pasta Mania?
I don't mind a bit of MILF Mania. That's okay. You can have some MILF Mania.
Ooh, yeah. We may well end up reviewing that Stephanie McMahon DVD one of these days.
Could be a comedy segment episode.
I'm there for it. Someday. Someday.
Someday over the rainbow, way up high.
For now, we shall love you and leave you, and hope you're all staying safe and keeping well, and we'll get chatting to you next week.
Oh, yeah. Okay. See you guys next time.